I am pleased to welcome our Deputy Principal of Student Wellbeing and Operations, Mr. Peter Dickinson, to the Term 4 Principals podcast. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Now, Peter, you are recognised as a very reputable and esteemed educational leader and educator, and that's really part of the reason why we recruited you to Oakleigh Grammar. Would you mind providing the audience some background about your career path?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Whilst I'd had some experience and enjoyed leading a church youth group and a junior tennis program, teaching wasn't necessarily the first area of interest. However, when I did fall into teaching, I was blessed to have as my first role a position in the primary school at Wesley College at Glen Waverley. And from there, I seemed to be quite fast-tracked when it came to then being appointed as head of junior school and head of middle school. And then in 2009, it was a privilege to be appointed as head of the Glen Waverley campus. So a campus, a bit like a principal, I guess. It's a school of 1,300 students from kindergarten to year 12. And certainly it's in that 8.5 or 9 years or so that received all the challenges and rewards as part of that role. But I think that we can all be proud of what was achieved at that time. But then I got to the stage in life where I thought, well, what else is out there? Can I make a contribution somewhere else and share some of my experiences in another education setting? And I looked all over the world, but ended up here in Oakleigh, and most fortunate to do so. But I think throughout all my time, the number one consistent thing has been the fact that I've stayed true to being a teacher, and I think that's probably enhanced my leadership as much as anything else. But I've been very blessed to have a range of different experiences, and that has helped me grow as a leader and as an educator.
Thanks, Peter. There's no doubt the authenticity in your leadership and conviction you have as an educational leader is very evident, and I certainly applaud you for that. In terms of a significant career at Wesley College, and that in itself suggests that your contribution has been extremely significant and well appreciated by the Wesley community. And then to change to a smaller community school like Oakleigh Grammar would be very different for you. So I'm interested in how you would describe the culture of Oakleigh Grammar.
I think one of the things that stood out to me from the moment I walked around, but also in my early weeks, was the strong sense of community. And I'd come from a school where that community was very strong, and I found that in abundance here. And I think that's one of the things about the culture at Oakleigh Grammar that stands out to me, is it is very welcoming. I'm also very conscious, and as someone who's very passionate about history, that Hellenic traditions and the Orthodox values stand out to me. But we're also a school that's very forward-thinking, and I obviously knew you and knew what you were doing here because of the reputation of Oakleigh Grammar, and I was keen to contribute to a school that was moving forward, and hopefully some opportunities to contribute in that sense as well. And I think the other thing about the culture here is that the staff culture is very strong. The way in which they support the students and also support each other, I think that's a real standout.
No, I agree with you, Peter, and I think you're certainly adding to that culture, and the staff certainly appreciate your leadership. I guess as educators and as educational leaders that we're often mentoring and influencing others in our roles, but we're also learners, and as you mentioned before, you're a teacher at heart. So what do you believe would be one of your biggest learnings as a senior educational leader at our school?
Yeah, I think one of the things, probably more personal, that's probably that it's okay to change, to go through change. And I think that it's okay to get out of your comfort zone. And I think we can, through the examples that I've undertaken myself, you can then work with the other staff and students in that respect, because from change comes growth and other opportunities. I think one of the other learnings from here at Oakleigh Grammar has been the benefits of the strength that comes from the leadership team, and I think that we're in a very strong position in terms of our leadership, and I know that I'm growing from the work of people who may be less experienced than me but are bringing new ideas, and I think that's another strong element there.
So Peter, at our school, you're tagged as Deputy Principal Student Wellbeing and Operations. What would you say is the most enjoyable part of your role?
probably an obvious one, but I think anything to do with where I'm working with students. And I think that, be that in a classroom or outside the classroom, I think the fact that we get to work in a kindergarten to year 12 school, we get to see the growth of students over time. But I like being able to do something with our youngest students, and then a minute later you're up in the senior school, academic centre for excellence, and you're dealing with our young people and supporting them with their next part of their life, or helping them do some activities that might support the leadership, within the school. And I think that also within my role outside of working with students, and the students give me my energy, they give me my motivation, and what causes me to do what I do, knowing that hopefully I'm making a difference for them, and allows you to do some of the jobs you perhaps don't enjoy as much. But also in this role, I work with staff from ELC to year 12, and people from all different experiences and all different roles. And I think that's something which I appreciate, where I can support them, but also I've learned, from them. And I enjoy that, we can do that.
It's not unusual, Peter, to see you at sporting carnivals and at camps, liaising, mixing with our students and staff, and mentoring them as you do on a daily basis, and we certainly appreciate that. I'm just wondering what sparked the passion in relation to your interest in student wellbeing.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's another area which I thoroughly enjoy as part of my role. And I think that for me, wellbeing underpins everything within a student's journey through school. It's their learning, it's their sense of attachment to the school, but it's also in their relationships. And I think that the core for me is about getting to know each student for who they are, who they want to be, and supporting them to be the best versions of themselves. And that's about also providing them with the skills to cope with the various emotions that come through life, and making sure that they're positive behaviours and positive emotions, that they're supported to develop the skills when times are a little bit tough, and can be supported within that mental health frame. And I think if you don't have the well-being in place, I think those other things won't happen. And another key point for me would also be about developing their sense of self-esteem and their sense of achievement. And I think I've always believed strongly in successes looks very different to all different children, and part of our role as educators to make sure that we can provide opportunities for them to achieve success, even if it's not just in the classroom. And I think that's where all those co-curricular activities, the house programs, the camps, and where students can shine where they may not always shine in a classroom.
And it's great to see the agility under your leadership of our student wellbeing program, because as we know, there'll be different things that impact student lives from time to time, such as the recent COVID pandemic. Just moving on to the final question, an important one because many of our listeners will be prospective families. Why should prospective families be sending their children to Oakleigh Grammar?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think there's lots of reasons. I think whilst we are just approaching, we're 40 years young, we're a relatively young school compared to many others in Melbourne. We can trace our history back 2,500 years, and I think there's really strong foundations by which we can stand. And I think, as I said earlier, it's also we are a school that's not afraid to stand still. So we're very progressive in our outlook, but the core values hold us steady, and I think that's something which is, prospective parents can see has been a very positive. I think that every decision that we make in the school is focused on the students, and you lead our meetings or our executive meetings, but every decision comes back to the students. And I think one of the positives in recent years has been the way in which things like the growth in student advocacy has really started to play out. And at the end of the day, I think we're a small school, but it also allows us to get to know the students for who they are, and the students are well supported here. And I think that's another reason which I think the small size allows that, but we're not so small that we can't do all these other wonderful new programs.
I can share with our listeners that it would not be unusual if they drove past our school for you to be standing out in front of the gates in the morning, the afternoon, welcoming our parents and students to our school. And I encourage any prospective families who are thinking about sending their children to an independent school to come and visit Oakleigh Grammar, and certainly you'll see myself, Peter, and our other leaders and staff welcoming you as you come into the gates of Oakleigh Grammar. Peter, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for your leadership and inspiration at our school.
Thank you, Mark. Thoroughly enjoy what I do.